Welcome back to the show, everybody. The path for XRP to become a global reserve currency. We're going to take a look at that today and so much more. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. Take a look at this. This is Coin Paprika. Download the app for yourself. It's fantastic. $991 billion crypto market cap. We're under $1 trillion at the time of recording this video. Bitcoin 18,800 plus, Ethereum 1,500 plus. We see XRP at the number 7 spot, changing places with Cardano. Shout out to Charles Hoskinson at 32 cents. Let's get started.
We're friends with the cryptocurrency movement. We've both got the same problem. We're building a bridge to the cryptocurrency ecosystem so that you will be able to buy physical allocated gold, Glint, and go backwards and forwards between the two different worlds. So definitely look forward to having that done and having a good relationship with between the two communities.
And I am too. That is Jason Cousins from Glint Pay right there. And you guys know I love working with him, but I love being a customer even more. I am using my Glint Pay card to hedge inflation everywhere because I'm using gold as money. And I love it. I can track my spending. I can see all of it. It's fantastic, as well as accumulating gold too. And I'm getting ready to top off my card here very soon. So shout out to Jason Cousins. And I cannot wait for that bridge to crypto. That is going to be very, very exciting. Check out the link underneath the video, ladies and gentlemen. Take a look at this. We got a lot to go over today. This is Dalip Singh, and he is the former Assistant Secretary of U.S. Treasury Financial Markets. He left this past June. Just recently left. Listen what he says about the EO, which is the Executive Order, and digital assets. Take a listen.
I would just say your question speaks to why we issued the EO. Left to itself, we simply don't know if digital technology would evolve in a way that protects consumers, either in terms of the volatility of the asset itself or operational risks, which you alluded to, or cybersecurity issues. We don't know if the scale of cryptocurrencies could rise to a point at which financial stability is threatened from destabilizing runs. We don't know if tax avoidance would take place. We don't know if illicit finance would occur and be intermediated through these mechanisms, if sanctions are being evaded, et cetera, et cetera. So if we lay out the guardrails, we'll remove uncertainty for the innovators themselves. And the purpose of doing all of this is to push the applications to evolve in a way that harnesses the potential benefits of what is a genuine innovation and could provide real benefits to inclusion, efficiency, and global leadership. So that's why we're doing this.
And that's as far as him speaking towards the crypto executive order. Now, I happen to believe, speculation, sound the alarm, that the XRP ledger, the ILP, interledger protocol, are so very important as a foundational layer to the Internet of Value, as well as some other protocols, I'm sure. I think of these things as so profoundly important and impactful that they could be looked at as the foundation layer for HTTP for all the websites built in the world on the internet, or SMTP for all the email that's built or written and sent all over the world, no matter what provider or carrier you have. That's how I see the functionality and efficiency and the interoperability of the ILP and the XRP ledger working together, and certainly some other blockchains as well, like XLM. But look, I'm speculating, but let's think about just some of the deep ties here. And here's one from Nathan Price right here. Shout out to you, Nathan. Ripple has been tapped in for some years now. Now, we know about the Federal Reserve Faster Payments Task Force. We know about the Faster Payments Council, right? We know about the Digital Dollar Project and Ripple being in the sandbox and many, many, many other things. But this goes to show how far back, because this is the BIS, baby, the central banks of central banks, all the way back to 2014. Again, shout out to Nathan. Miss Karen Gifford, Chief Compliance Officer, Ripple Labs, former counsel and officer, Litigation Enforcement Group, Federal Reserve Bank of New York. This is the kind of deep ties that we constantly find and see and run into that make me feel good as an XRP holder. Now, it doesn't mean things are going to roll out and change by Tuesday. We know that there are a lot more. I think we've even heard James Wallace say in recent interviews, they're working with more than a dozen central banks, but they'll be announcing even more, according to Anthony Welfare, Ripple advisor, coming up in the next few weeks or days. So keep an eye out for that. But here we know the discussion about, no matter what we think of central bank digital currencies, because they can be very, very invasive when it comes to finding out what we spend these things on. If it's retail facing, which I hope the one for the US is not. We know that everybody in the different countries and regions around the world are in different places with them, and CBDCs are not a done deal in many countries. Shout out to Molly Elmore for this thread. There is a force working in our favor. CBDCs would massively disrupt commercial banks and cost them money by fractional reserve lending. This is why, in her opinion, Jerome Powell said Fed now is all we need. And I think that that is accurate. And I've even echoed as much to that point. Fed now is using the blockchain to make improvements to bank. And one quick second here. My apologies for the phone ringing there. Let's jump back into this thing. So FedNow is using the blockchain to make improvements to bank transactions. A retail CBDC is a completely different animal and will cut the banks out of the flow of money. Very quickly, I want to point this out, and I do believe that's why Jerome Powell doesn't think they have to rush to get a CBDC out, because they have the FedNow system, which is domestic. I think it's going to organize domestic liquidity along with settlement, right? And all of those things to go with it. But thinking of this, we got to remember the two-tier system that is in place right now, certainly in the U.S. as well as other places, but certainly the U.S., where we have the commercial banking system, and then we have the Federal Reserve central banking system tier. And as long as we keep that two-tier system, I think it will be much easier for the Fed and other central banks to develop a wholesale CBDC and have some kind of a public-private relationship for the retail-facing digital dollar. That's my thought, and I hope Digital Dollar Project is a part of that story. So here, Molly Elmore says real quick, it's possible a two-tier CBDC system could be used like in China, but it still impacts the banks considerably, how they will issue loans if the supply of money is controlled by a central bank. I've touched that before. Money going into the commercial banks is backed by the loans from commercial banks are backed by the money that goes into commercial banks, and the debt and the treasuries are what's backed by the money coming into that. So for the federal system, if you put the federal directly into Federal Reserve in direct retail hands, then you're obfuscating the two-tier system, and I believe you would cause a very quick deterioration of the commercial banking system. I don't think anyone wants to see that happen in a unbridled fashion, right? You know what I mean? So we'll see what happens there. The retail CBDC push started in Europe with Davos, and there it is. Unpopular today, if you hear the phone ringing again. The retail CBDC push, and I've just muted the phone here, so I normally do. Sorry about that. With Davos crowd who wants a one world government, how do the large commercial banks like JP Morgan benefit from being subservient to the World Economic Forum? That's such a great question. We are watching a turf war play out between European old money and the former colonists, bankers, who want the ability to make money betting on markets. Who will win? Don't assume all banks are on the same side. They have different agendas. So well said right there. And listen, this brings me back to the case, because we know that Ripple and XRP are a huge part of helping central bank digital currencies launch CBDCs. We hear James Wallace talk about it all the time. I think this case is so important, in fact, that it's largely in part. Look, I certainly believe the case was used as a weapon by people inside the right agencies that had the knowledge to understand what the ultimate goal for Ripple and XRP and the XRP ledger actually were and still are. That's what I do believe, all of those things. But I also believe that because they had that inside knowledge, they knew that Ripple was the one to be a threat. They knew that they could take advantage and have a first mover advantage by investing or go to work for other companies like Apollo, right? Or these other different entities that we know about, Jay Clayton and William Hinman. I believe these things to be all a part of it. But I also firmly believe that when we're looking at this information, that there is the question of how the SEC takes up the idea that Ripple also undertook to achieve its goal of widespread distribution of XRP by exchanging XRP for non-cash consideration. I believe this suggests the option contracts when pre-allocation takes place of XRP. That is not an opinion of whether that happens. It happens. It is a fact. And I believe the reality here is that the Reeves test can play a huge role in this whole case about whether XRP is in fact money or a security, right? The Reeves tests are promissory notes considered securities. 1990 Supreme Court Reeves versus Ernst & Young, case based on a sale of promissory notes sold by a farmer's co-op to fund its business operations. Promissory note happens to be a debt instrument that contains a promise by one party to pay another party for a definite sum of money, either on demand or at a specified future date. I believe this could be formed and shaped by the SEC as a part of the argument around the options contracts where pre-allocation took place. If we go into it even further, and first, before I go on to this, I do want to say, when I saw this, I actually responded back to Molly and I said, wow, Molly, that's awesome. I wasn't sure. I'm just so excited to see someone else cover this Reeves test because I really believe it could be playing a big part in the case. Thank you for putting a spotlight on it. I appreciate all you do. She says, Brad, I watch your YouTube show every day and learned about the Reeves test from you. Thank you for being the inspiration for this thread. And then I thought of a funny anecdote story about the timekeeper at the factory is in charge of blowing the whistle for lunch break at noon. When it's almost noon, he looks at his watch, and right when it strikes 12, he blows the whistle. One day, he bumps his watch against something, and he fears that it's a little bit off. Wanting to make sure that he can do his job correctly, he decides to go get his watch set by a professional clockmaker. The man goes to the shop and has the clockmaker set his watch to the correct time. He tells the clockmaker what he does for a living and that it is important that his watch keeps correct time. The clockmaker tells him that he needn't worry because he set his watch by the clocks in the back and that he can be sure that they're on time because he sets them every Sunday when the church bell rings at 6 a.m. The man leaves the shop but starts to ask himself, how does the church know exactly when it's 6 a.m.? So he goes to the church and he finds the bell ringer and asks him, how does he know when to ring the bells and how does he make sure that he has the correct time? The bell ringer tells him that he rings the bells right when his watch strikes 6 a.m. And he's sure that his watch is correct because he checks it every day at noon when the factory goes on break. It was in this moment I thought to myself, wow, are Molly and I hyping each other and everyone else up a tree? I certainly know that the cancel culture people think so. But here's the problem with that. Who's Matthew Solomon setting his clock by when he's referencing the Reeves test and he's asking SEC attorney Steve Buchholz to expound on it?
I think I looked yesterday, what's happened with all that. There may have been some extensions. I don't think we have clarity on that. Finding something, it's not a finding that's legally binding. This is the way that these settlements are styled. But the commission found that this lending product was a equity security, an investment contract, but also that it constituted a note under the Reeves test. And they set that out, the commission set that out in the settlement order. This is a way, I guess, of giving some kind of guidance through this settled order of how expansive the commission believes the Reeves test is in relation to lending products, not just equity security, but also, in their view, a debt security. Others going to follow suit because clearly there must be other inquiries going on of similar products, since, again, BlockFi is not the only one out there like this. So that's my perspective on it. I don't know if others have views, because I do think this is an effort. I don't know, Steve, if you can talk any more about it, probably not, but to give some information to the marketplace. And those are my personal views about what the commission's trying to do, but if you can elaborate on that for us, that'd be great.
Yeah, I can't elaborate in any way that you would enjoy, I don't think. But
so he's speaking to the fact that I can't elaborate on the Reeves test that you outlined so well of when something is a note in any way that you would enjoy, I don't think. So who are setting the clocks for Steve Buchholz at the SEC? Who's setting the clock for Matthew Solomon? Because I damn sure know it's not me and it's not Molly Elmore. So we're not hyping Matthew Solomon, which is Brad Garlinghouse's lawyer, up a tree, because he just said this past June. And I know we're not hyping up Steve Buchholz up a tree, and he thinks the Reeves test is just as important too. Or how about these two?
It's called the Howey test. There's other broad brushes with regard to this as well, as to when something is a note, called the Reeves test that Thurgood Marshall wrote.
Wow, who's hyping up Gary Gensler? Who's setting his clock? I'm pretty sure Gary Gensler's not watching me to get hyped up a tree and talk about the Reeves test, now is he? And how about Hester Peirce? Who's setting her clock?
Looks a lot like a securities offering, right? And so we're going to treat that as a securities offering. We're going to regulate that. And so that's kind of how we look at it through that lens. Now, there are other pieces of the definition of security, like what's a note, that may come up in the crypto context as well.
Yeah, that is pretty interesting right there. So I thought that was a great little story there to share about how you can think that two people are really hyping each other and a crowd up a tree that really has no branches. But the truth is, who's hyping Matthew Solomon, Brad Garlinghouse's lawyer? Who's setting the clock for Steve Buchholz from the SEC, or Gary Gensler from the SEC, or Hester Peirce? That is the question. And we see right here, so after the settlement of R3, there was 1.04 billion XRP pre-allocated and awarded to R3. Well, isn't this interesting from Tipsy Tiger from back in 2020 here? It says, separately, in 2016, Ripple entered into an agreement with enterprise software firm Option Investor B, based in Manhattan, that gave the firm an option to buy 5 billion XRP at a discounted price in exchange for efforts to help Ripple develop a use for XRP. The amount of XRP available for purchase under the option was later reduced, and Option Investor B purchased at least 1.04 billion XRP in 2019. They had an original option for 5 billion XRP. They only got one. You know how many times I've had so many people out here in this space tell me that R3's not going to use XRP. Well, then what are they going to do with 1.04 billion of them then? Stare at them? When it comes to the Ripple versus the SEC, JV says, I'm not convinced that XRP Ripple settlement this month, not unless Library gets a positive ruling with their summary judgment, and that may play a role. I say it would be nice. I happen to think this case will go the distance and then all the way to the Supreme Court, but it doesn't mean we can't get a win-win. The SEC could get a huge fine. Ripple could get a judgment that allows it to move forward in the United States as well. And the SEC could choose to appeal it to a higher court, taking it all the way to the Supreme Court. And if, in fact, all the money is going across the XRP ledger and the interledger protocol, I think settlement may not do, ladies and gentlemen. I think you would need the finality of the Supreme Court to make all the world feel comfortable about all the money being on it. Ledger. It's a great cold storage wallet. I use it. The majority of my holdings are on it, and you can buy, sell, and trade, swap your assets in crypto right on your cold storage wallet. Not your keys, not your crypto. So many amazing features. Download Ledger live for your phone and just see how incredible it really is. Click the link. Great specials and deals, ladies and gentlemen. I'll catch all of you on the next one. I'm not a financial advisor, but these are my digital perspectives. I'll catch all of you on the next one.